The unnerving story of weapons being deployed by Ukraine this morning to is unprecedented use of US-supplied Army tactical missile systems, the ATACMS, to strike within Russian territory. It's not clear that that is what has happened, but reports on the BBC suggest that may have happened at 3 o'clock this morning. 6 missiles struck. Five of them didn't strike, but the sixth one struck a missile depot in Russia's Bryansk region bordering northern Ukraine. And according to US sources, this strike was carried out with Washington's prior approval, but it doesn't say that this was with ATACMS. These missiles are able to strike up to 186 miles away from the place where they are deployed. Ukraine has used these missiles previously within its own borders in Russian-occupied territories, but the decision to deploy them deeper into Russian territory marks a significant shift. And Russia's defense ministry has said that the missiles targeted a military depot near Karachev, about 115 kilometers from the Ukrainian-Russian border, and 5 of the 6 missiles, they said, were intercepted with 1 missile fragment igniting a fire at the facility, though no casualties reported. The Ukrainian Ukrainian military has confirmed striking an ammunition depot in Bryansk, but they haven't said how they did it. They haven't said whether they've used ATACMS. And this ambiguity aligns with Kyiv's general strategy of measuring disclosures with limited information to maintain operational discretion, secrecy, preparedness. And with a range capable of striking well beyond the border skirmishes, ATACMS allow Ukraine to target critical supply chains, airfields, military installations deep within Russia. And this use not only disrupts or threatens to disrupt Russian logistics, but also signals Ukraine's capacity to respond more robustly to Russian aggression. And the deployment has fueled a robust response from Moscow. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has condemned it as evidence of US-led escalation, suggesting American involvement in missile operation and hinting at a Western war against Russia. This narrative bolsters Russians' claims of an existential conflict involving NATO powers, and it bolsters the propaganda that has been pushing for some time now that its invasion of Ukraine was a defensive maneuver rather than an offensive invasion. And it's tried various maneuvers, so we know it's a lie, because it suggested this was against Nazis in Ukraine that don't exist. The only Nazis were those wearing the Wagner insignia. It suggested that it was against Western values and some sort of crusade, blessed by Archbishop the Patriarch Kirill. And only after those two were attempted did it suggest that this was about a NATO aggression. And the propagandists have continued with this. But the propaganda isn't for the West. The propaganda is for the bulk of Russia, which survives on switching on the television and listening to this odorous chorus. And after a while, there isn't anything else to hear. In an intertwined response, therefore, President Putin this morning approved amendments to Russia's nuclear doctrine, but he did that formally well after these missiles apparently struck the ammunition depot in Bryansk. Well after. So I'm not sure how legally binding this new doctrine will be at this moment. It now asserts that an attack by a non-nuclear state, supported by a nuclear power, is perceived to be a coordinated assault on Russia, and this charge of an assault is an attempt by Moscow to deter Western support, to heighten the stakes of Ukraine's military ventures, and it is in itself a threat. While Washington's permission for Ukraine to use ATACMS reflects its increasing commitment, US officials have stressed that Kyiv's actions remain sovereign decisions, an important but cautious stance to avoid direct confrontation. However, they haven't said whether or not Ukraine has access to Washington's or US satellite technology, or whether indeed US agents are helping to connect with satellite technology. NATO allies have expressed concern over potential escalation, but have underscored the necessity of supporting Ukraine's self-defense, and the EU's recent statement emphasized resilience and solidarity with Ukraine, which is the right thing to do, especially as reports confirm increased Russian coordination with North Korean troops, mercenaries, potentially expanding the conflict's scope, and this extraordinary barrage of civilian infrastructure in the last few nights across Kyiv and Odessa, raising the stakes even further. With the first use of ATACMS, if this is the first use, Ukraine demonstrates an evolving arsenal and strategy, and the Ukrainian President Zelensky has framed any strike as part of a broader defensive plan, emphasizing resilience and signaling forthcoming pivotal military engagements. Meanwhile, reports of planned domestic production of long-range drones and missiles underscore Kyiv's commitment to reducing reliance on Western arms, and therefore, of course, on the quandary about who is attacking whom. The deployment of ATACMS into Russian territory represents a notable shift in the war's trajectory, militarily, diplomatically, strategically. And as Ukraine continues to bolster its defense with Western weaponry, with this advanced weaponry, the international community must navigate a precarious line between supporting Ukraine's sovereignty and averting wider conflict. The stakes are undeniably high, with recent military strikes illuminating the war's potential to escalate into broader confrontation. And as this is at this critical stage, at this phase in the conflict, as lines blur between national and international warfare, and with Russia's nuclear rhetoric more pointed than ever, the next steps will require measured resolve, strategic diplomacy, and vigilant support for peace initiatives that acknowledge the balance of power and the human cost of war, and particularly the civilian casualties of this war in particular. I think the broader military strategies, the broader international reaction is important to consider in this story, and it's a worrying story. There's no doubt at all about it.